The radical, fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Yaron Brook Show on this, what is it? It's Sunday, February 1st. Let me just see what's going on here. All right. What is going on? Okay, we muted that. We got rid of the bubble there. We started this. You guys are all there. That's good. All right. As you can tell, I'm in a hotel. I'm in Florida. I'm attending the IMAN conference here in Fort Myers, Florida. You guys should have been here. I mean, it's a fun conference. It's nice, intimate, small, good group of people, great speakers, and yeah, you should have come. You should have come next year. You got to come next year. I gave a talk yesterday on trade, and also participated in a panel with Harry Binswanger and Peter Schwartz on kind of how would things work in a laissez-faire capitalist society. So that was a lot of fun. That was a lot of fun. Yes, I'm back from the dead. Somebody says, not from the dead. I've been alive, but busy, traveling. As you can tell, hotel room, internet. Who knows? It seems to be stable. It seems to be pretty good, but you know as well as I do that can change in just like that. So we'll deal with whatever the internet, the Wi-Fi gods throw at us. We will handle, and we will start. All right. Let's see. Before we get to the op-ed by Donald Trump, which will be the first topic, and I'll put it up on the screen so we can read it together, I wanted to just note, for whatever it's worth, just a moment. I'm not going to talk a lot about this, about gold and silver. Gold and silver plummeted on Friday. I mean, I went down a lot. Silver has gone from 120 to, what just happened here? From 120 to basically 78. So that's a big drop, 119 to 78, a big drop in basically 1 day, 1.5 days. That's a huge drop. I don't know where it's going to go from here. I don't know. Gold, which, if I remember right, I said, you guys should sell. Basically went down 12% in 1 day, and is now significantly under 5,000. It's at 4,745. I think I said you should sell at 5,000. You'd have missed a peak. I'm usually early by a day or two because it peaked at 5,600, and now it's at 4,745. So at least at the very top of it, speculative bubble. Now, I nailed it, but you see, if Christians online, I don't know if Christians are listening, if Christians are listening, what we should do is we should put together a video of all my predictions. We could go back to 2002, my first public speaking engagements where I made predictions, and we should just put together a video of Yaron being right. Yaron being right. Anyway, it seems like the speculative bubble is being pricked, but you never know. Like, speculative bubbles have various characteristics. You could see another spike up. You could see a continuing decline. You can see flatness. Bitcoin, by the way, is under 80,000, so Bitcoin is being part of this significant decline. But I'm not going to predict where prices are going to be, but selling at 5,000 turned out to be, at least in the short run, at least for today, a pretty good call. I'll just pat myself on the back and take credit for that one. But just add it up to all the different predictions. I mean, we could do a Yaron was right compilation, and then you could also do a Yaron was wrong compilation. I think the Iran was right compilation will be a lot longer than the Iran was wrong compilation. So I don't know, Christian, if you want to take that up, that could be a project. That could be pretty cool. Pretty cool. With dates and everything, signed off and everything, right? All right. So I was giving a talk yesterday at the conference on trade, free trade, the history of trade in America, like tariffs, history of tariffs in America. My point was that tariffs were the most contentious political issue in America during the 19th century, second only to slavery. It led to constitutional crises. It was a major issue that people debated and disagreed about, even though many of the people who disagreed about it had the opportunity, and many of them did, read Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations. Anyway, the day before my talk, Donald Trump wrote an op-ed about trade. It was like he heard I was giving this talk in Florida, and he assumed, given everything I've said over the years, that I would attack his trade policies, and he wrote an op-ed to try to defend himself. So I'm taking that as a big boost. Donald Trump cares enough about what I have to say about trade that he feels obligated to write an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal to preempt what I'm going to say. Hopefully, that is the truth. Probably not, but anyway. All right, Cook has a Yaron was wrong, but happy to be wrong compilation. That would be good. I like that one. We could have a lot of compilations. Yeah, let's get creative. I wonder if that'll increase my subscribers or decrease my subscribers, depending if the predictions have to do with ICE or not. That determines the level of subscription to my show. All right, what do we need to do here? We need to get the Donald Trump op-ed up on screen. We can do that way. There you go. You see the op-ed right there. And I have the op-ed here, and we will scroll up. So this is the op-ed. It was published on January 30th. It was published on today's Sunday, on Friday. In the afternoon, so Friday afternoon. I gave the talk on Saturday. Donald J. Trump, my tariffs have brought America back. To those of you who are listening and can't see the title, the experts predicted market crashes, massive inflation, and recession. They were wrong. That is his. And so I'm going to read it and comment as I read, because, and the reason I'm going to read it to you is because it's pretty much stuff to comment on everything that he writes here. It's a fairly long op-ed, but hopefully we can get through this fairly quickly. And anyway, feel free in the meantime to ask questions. Ask questions in the super chat questions, and support the show. Do stickers. Ask questions. You disagree with me. You want to disagree with me? Don't do it in the chat. Do it in the super chat. It's a much better way to disagree. That way I'll read what you have to say. All right, here we go. When I imposed historical tariffs on nearly all foreign countries last April, the critics said my policies would cause a global economic meltdown. Instead, they've created an American economic miracle. And we are quickly building the greatest economy in the history of the world, with other countries doing just fine. So, one, if you remember when he imposed the tariffs on nearly all foreign countries last April, and the stock market collapsed and the stock market was down like 20%, he backed off on most of those tariffs and restructured them and made exclusions and lowered the rates and basically backed away from the most disastrous ones, and as a consequence, the market came back up. So his original imposition of historical tariffs, resulted in at least a stock market meltdown, not an economic meltdown. Actually, nobody actually predicted an economic meltdown. Everybody said it was bad. Everybody said it would hurt the United States. It would hurt Americans. It would hurt American companies. It was a bad long-term decision. The stock market reflected that. The bond market reflected that. But nobody actually said it would lead to a global economic meltdown. I mean, those who are economic historians and proper historians don't even consider Smoot-Hawley as an economic meltdown. It didn't cause the Great Depression. It didn't help. It made it worse. But it wasn't a major cause of the Great Depression. The U.S. economy and the U.S. generally is a massive country with massive quantities being produced in the country. The amount of imports we bring into the country is not that big. It's big in some areas, like dolls and toys. You can't have that many dolls, Donald Trump told us. The economy is doing so well. We're doing so well, the greatest economy in the history of the world. But you can't have too many dolls. You know, 1, 2, max. You can't have more than that. That would be really bad. Nobody actually predicted economic meltdown or hyperinflation, all the things that he accuses them of predicting. Everybody predicted it would hurt the U.S. economy, and those predictions have all come true. The economy is not the greatest economy in the world, in the history of the world, and it's just not. He goes on, countless so-called experts, including those featured frequently in the Wall Street Journal, predicted confidently that the Trump tariffs would crash stock markets, crush economic growth, cause massive inflation, destroy American exports, and trigger a worldwide recession. 9 months later, the results are in. Every one of those predictions was proven completely and totally wrong. Since I was elected in 2024, we have had 52 market highs, stock market highs with virtually no inflation. There has never been anything like it. Okay, so first, again, nobody predicted. I mean, the world stock markets did crash. The only reason they uncrashed, the only reason they recovered is because he undid the tariffs. He undid the worst of the tariffs, and he gave exclusions, he gave exclusions to all the most important industries, right? Like chips, like electronics, like iPhones, like the real drivers of economic growth in the United States were all given loopholes, were all given exclusions, not in exchange for a nice big check, but they were all given exclusions. So this idea that his tariffs didn't cause the meltdown, yeah, because he backed away from how the real awful, horrible tariffs that he initially put. But indeed, nobody didn't say it would cause massive inflation because tariffs are not inflationary. They raise prices, but they're not inflationary. They raise some prices. Other prices either have to go down or people don't buy the stuff because you only have a limited amount of money. Some prices have gone up because taxes are being imposed on them. And as a consequence, you have less money to spend on other things. You know, that's just what happens. So those prices, the prices of the goods that got tariffed, all went up. The evidence is overwhelming of significant price increases in those goods. Indeed, the reason that Trump has done away with tariffs on things like bananas, remember bananas, is because once the tariff went into place in bananas, banana prices shot through the roof. People started complaining. So he eliminated the tariff on bananas. Why? To get the price down. It's not that Trump and the people around him don't understand these economic principles. They do. They just pretend they don't exist. They're just not interested. They just don't care about the fact that you have to pay higher prices. So absolutely, this is it's a complete and utter lie what he's talking about. And he says 52 stock market highs. I haven't tested that. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not. You can't trust any number in this op-ed. With virtually no inflation. Now, what does that mean? I take virtually no inflation to be close to zero. But what's inflation been? Now, here we're talking about price inflation, CPI, PPE, PPC, whatever the measure, PPI, whatever the measure that you like for inflation. None of them, not a single measure of inflation is close to no inflation, it's close to zero. Every single one of them is above the Fed's preferred rate of inflation, which is 2%. All of them are close to 3%. Indeed, not a single one of them has really gone down since Biden. They basically, inflation, as measured by CPI, or one of these other measures, basically stayed the same since Trump took office. So for him to say with virtually no inflation is just a blatant lie. And it's one of those lies, and you will see this again and again during this thing. It's one of these lies that can easily be checked. Easily be checked. He doesn't care. He goes on to say, I inherited an economy ravaged by radical policies of sleepy Joe Biden and his allies in Congress. Their trillions of dollars in wasteful spending and their extremist green energy agenda created the worst inflation in more than 40 years. That was true in the middle of the Biden agenda, costing the typical American family $33,000 in real wealth. I have no idea where he gets that number, how he gets that number. Maybe we can ask ChatGPT afterwards where he got that number. The Biden years were defined by the misery known as stagflation, high inflation and low growth. Growth was not that low. Inflation was high. Inflation was high, although it had come down by the time the election happened. And inflation hasn't changed since then. It's basically stayed the same. So Trump has not reduced inflation. He continues, only 12 months into the second term in office, we now have the exact opposite. Extremely low inflation, again, a lie. Extraordinarily high economic growth, maybe. I don't think that's the case. We've gotten one very high GDP number. We'll see if that gets adjusted downwards in the months to come. And also, it's an interesting kind of economic growth because it's economic growth without job creation. There's almost no increase in jobs associated with this particular. What is going on here with this particular? That is that. This is this. Okay, I see. And with it. All right. So keep going. In the third quarter of 2025, gross domestic product has boomed at 4.4%, true. And despite the Democratic-induced shutdown last fall, which cost us at least 1 point, I doubt it, the fourth quarter is projected by the Atlanta Fed to be well over 5%. True, but other predictions put it more around 2 to 3%, a number like our country has not seen in many years. Meanwhile, and here come the punchy things. Meanwhile, annual core inflation, again, he's talking about CPI, core inflation, for the past 3 months has dropped to just 1.4%. Ask ChatGPT if that's true. I did. I also checked independently, but basically no, there's no relation to reality. The 1.4% comes from somebody's imagination. It's an imaginary number that somebody plucked into this op-ed. I don't know if Trump did or one of his advisors. A core CPI is more like 2.6, 2.7%. There's absolutely no basis for this. He says far lower than almost anyone other than me, Donald Trump, had predicted. But that's just not true. It's at 2.6, 2.7. He says economic growth does not cause inflation. That is true. In fact, often it does the exact opposite. That is also true. Real incomes for the typical worker rose 1,000 to 2,000 or even more last year, increasing much faster than consumer prices. Questionable. Wages far outpaced inflation. Questionable. That, by the way, was also true under part of Biden's administration, at least. He says since Liberation Day, the stock market has skyrocketed after he withdrew much of the tariffs that he put on countries during Liberation Day, with the strong possibility we will soon break 50,000 in the Joe's industrial average, something which everyone thought was impossible, at least in 1 year. Hasn't happened yet. And indeed, yesterday, Friday, the stock market went down quite a bit. Joe Biden handed me a catastrophically high budget deficit. This is where it gets really interesting. Right? Joe Biden handed me a catastrophically high budget deficit and the highest trade deficit in world history. But with the help of tariffs, we have cut that federal budget deficit. Listen to this. We have cut that federal budget deficit by a staggering 27% in a single year. So whatever the budget deficit was, let's say $2 trillion, now it's 27% lower? I mean, that would be cool, but it's not true. I mean, the budget deficit is, maybe a couple of percent, 2, 3, 4% lower than it was under Biden, at most. It's just 27% is just, again, a fictional number. He just makes it up. That's a quarter. Cut the budget deficit by a quarter. Tariff revenue is maybe 200 billion. Of that, maybe 150, 180 billion is excess tariffs from the increased tariffs. That is not enough to cut it by 27. We're talking about a budget deficit of just under $2 trillion, even under Trump. So again, he makes it up. And this one is even bigger. We have slashed our monthly trade deficit by an astonishing 77%. 77%. Now, there was 1 month, I think it was October, where the trade deficit was down relative to the previous month, I think, by 56%. It's not 77, 56 is a lot. But that was a fluke the next month and skyrocketed up again. Indeed, for the entire year of 2025, the trade deficit is going to likely be higher than it was in 2024. So if Joe Biden handed him the highest trade deficit in world history, well then Trump has just broken that record in 2025. It's again completely fabricated, 77%. I mean, completely made up numbers, or if they're not made up, they don't refer to this particular, they don't, I mean, a monthly trade deficit, I don't know which month he's talking about. Maybe there are 2 months in which the change was 77%, but it just is not reflective at all of what he's actually talking about. All with virtually no inflation, he says. No inflation, zero inflation, which everyone said could not be done. American exports are up 150 billion. Domestic steel production is up more than 300 tons a month. 300 tons a month is not a lot, given how many millions of tons a month the U.S. produces. Factory construction is up by 42% since 2022. Notice how he chooses his date, right? Factory construction is up by 42% since 2022. So factory production went up a huge amount from 2022 to 2024 under Biden. Why? Because of the CHIPS Act and because of the Inflation Reduction Act, where the government poured a huge amount of money to subsidize the construction of factories. From 2024 to the end of 2025, factory production has gone down significantly. But it went up so much between 2022 and 2024 that even though it's down from 2024, it's still 42% higher than 2022. So what actually happened, and again, this is government subsidies. I'm not for government subsidies, but this is the reality in terms of the numbers, that Donald Trump inherited a factory construction boom, which he has busted. Factory construction is way down. Indeed, he doesn't say this. Manufacturing employment lost over 70,000 jobs during 2025. Manufacturing is down. Manufacturing production is down. Even though you want to reindustrialize America, he's deindustrializing and unindustrializing America. So you see how you manipulate numbers and you use dates, and maybe it's technically not a lie, but it's a lie in the sense of what you're trying to imply. And again, this is filled with this. It's all one big, monstrous lie, deception, falsehood. He says, what does he say? China's share of U.S. imports has reached the lowest level since China entered the World Trade Organization in 2021. That's true because of the very high tariffs, and there was a period where it was over 100%, if you remember, that were negotiated down. But part of that is the fact that we can't buy rare earth materials from them. So that is hurting America. It's hurting American production. It's hurting American industry that we can't import this stuff. We can't import the materials that we use to produce. You could argue that the decline in manufacturing in America has to do with the lack of imports of some products from China. He says, and hundreds of billions of dollars more are pouring into the United States. No evidence of that. I sincerely hope the Supreme Court is watching these numbers because our country has never seen anything like them. Again, trying to influence the court's decision about tariffs. He continues, just over 1 year ago, we were a dead, all caps, country. Now we are the hottest, all caps, country anywhere in the world. The entire Trump economic agenda deserves credit for this explosion of growth and good news, including our record tax cuts, unprecedented regulatory cuts, pro-American energy policies, and much more. And that's true to the extent that the economy is growing, the economy is doing pretty well. It's because of the regulatory cuts, the pro-American energy policies, and to some extent tax cuts, or the extension of the tax cuts. Those are the reasons the economy is doing well. Tariffs impede all that. They hold all that back. We could be doing so much better. He says, but without question, the credit for this economic success must go to what the journal itself described as the largest economic policy shock in more than 50 years, my tariffs. He won't let go of this stuff. This is the one economic policy that he has that is really, really damaging. We have proven decisively that properly applied tariffs do not hurt growth. They promote growth and greatness, just as I said all along. The journal has charged repeatedly that tariffs are nothing but a tax on American consumers, which has proved to be totally false. Really? Experience since Liberation Day has proved that this analysis is not only far too simplistic, it is absolutely wrong. The data shows that the burden or incidence of tariffs has fallen overwhelmingly on foreign producers and middlemen. Notice he includes middlemen are American middlemen, including large corporations, and that are not from the US. According to a recent study by the Harvard Business School, these groups are paying at least 80% of the tariffs. Now here's the thing. He gives in the op-ed, he gives a link to the study. So I really recommend, if you read the op-ed and you're interested, you should click on the link to the study that he's citing to justify his argument. And here's what the study said. Now this is just in the abstract, but I actually read the study, or skimmed the study at least. And this is what the study says. It says, prices began rising immediately after the broader tariff measures were announced in early March, and continued to increase gradually over subsequent months, with imported goods rising roughly twice as much as domestic ones. This is the one he's citing to say prices were affected. Retail tariff pass-through reached 24%, contributing about 0.76 percentage points to the all-item consumer pricing, the CPI, by October 2025. So at least 24% of the tariffs were passed on to consumers by October in a gradual process. And this is what they continue. Tariff costs were gradually but steadily transmitted to U.S. consumers, and here's what, with additional spillovers to domestic goods. So not only did the imported goods go up in price, but there was spillover. That is, domestic goods went up in price as well because they faced less competition from the foreign goods. So not only did the tariffs good, not only did you pay a tax on the tariff goods, you also paid in higher goods for the domestic goods. Now, where did the rest of the money go? If only 24% was passed on to prices by October, we said had November, December, January. So my guess is right now it's much more than 24% because it's being incremental. It's being slowly, gradually being imposed on consumers over time, depending on products. Some products faster, some products slower. Who bore the rest of the cost? Well, here, all you have to do is go to another study, which basically shows, and I talked about this study a few shows ago, where it basically shows that 96% of all the costs of the tariffs are being borne by Americans, American companies, and American consumers. So if 24%, let's say by now it's 34%, 35%, then another 60% is being borne by American companies, and those American companies will slowly push those prices down to consumers, so that by the end of this year, my expectation is that 90%, 80, 85, 90% of the cost of the tariffs will be borne by consumers, a little bit will be borne by the importers, by large corporations, and maybe a sliver will be borne by foreigners. Of course, it's also true that if the entire cost of tariffs is borne by foreigners, if taxes are not going up in the United States, then how can revenue from tariffs go up? I mean, foreign companies don't literally write a check to the American government for the tariff. What foreign companies might do is they might reduce the price and suck in and absorb the tariff themselves. Right? But then you wouldn't have a significant increase in tariff revenue because prices wouldn't go up that much. The going up is the tax. You'd have a lower tax base. He writes, in many cases, nations that are heavily dependent on exports have no choice but to eat the tariffs to avoid even worse losses from the excess capacity. No evidence of that, none, zero, nada. This study that he cites, that he links to, doesn't show that. The other study that I told you about does not show that. No study has shown that. That's his speculation, again, making stuff up. So while the average U.S. tariff rate on foreign products has increased by more than 5 times, inflation has fallen dramatically. Inflation hasn't fallen. Inflation has stayed the same. It should have fallen. The CPI should have fallen. It didn't fall because it's capturing these increases. Because as the study that he links to shows, not only did the goods that were tariffs increase in price, but the domestic competitive goods also increased in price. So prices increased across the board. Let's see if there's anything else I want to... yeah, I mean, he's very proud of his most favored nation agreement to lower drug prices. This is price controls on drug companies, which is pretty brutal. Again, he's lying about the reciprocality of the tariffs. Yeah, he's talking about Korea. Companies are investing $150 billion to revive the shipbuilding industry in the United States. We'll see if any of that happens, but he just a few days ago said he was raising tariffs on South Korea because they weren't fulfilling that, among other things they weren't fulfilling. So is it happening or isn't it happening? He can't decide. We can, this is the final paragraph. It was the tariff that made America strong and powerful in generations past. Not true. By the way, I'll be teaching a course on trade, tariffs and trade and the history of trade and the history of American trade and the McKinley tariffs and all of that and whether this is true. I'll be teaching a class on that for ARI Live, I think starting in March or April. So check it out and hopefully you can sign up for that. And he says, it is tariffs that are making our country stronger, safer, and richer than ever before. All bullshit. Given the results of the past year and the spectacular economic numbers coming out every single day, perhaps it is time for the tariff skeptics at the Journal to consider putting on one of my favorite red hats, the one that reads, Trump was right about everything. I mean, this is an extraordinary op-ed because of how blatant it is. How just obviously false the things that he's saying are, and how easy to check the numbers, and see that it is false. He's just making stuff up. And it's pretty extraordinary to see a president or anybody just put himself out there, and not just in a speech where nobody's writing it down and it's hard to keep track, but in an op-ed, in the Wall Street Journal, that has an editorial board that knows this is all wrong, and it will probably publish a piece showing it is all wrong. The audacity of doing that is that's pretty amazing. That's pretty amazing. But but note that his fans, this will not change anything for them. They will they will just repeat these numbers. They will repeat these numbers as if they're the God-given truth. They won't challenge any of it. These numbers will start becoming law. You will start seeing people saying, well, Trump defeated inflation. There's no inflation anymore. Trump is reducing the federal budget deficit. He's reducing the trade deficit. Not that reducing the trade deficit, by the way, is a good thing. It's not necessarily a good thing. It's insignificant, and it's certainly not a good thing if you do it artificially. But it's not even true that he's doing that. So, but if you repeat a lie, and the left knows this. The left learned this a long, long time ago, and the right has now learned from the left how to do this. If you repeat a lie over and over and over and over and over and over again, it starts becoming conventional wisdom. It just starts becoming what everybody assumes is true, knows is true, just accepts as true. And nobody challenges it anymore. I mean, the left did this with wages haven't grown since the 70s. I've been hearing that for 20 years. Now, Trump believes it, half the right believes it, all of the left believes it, everybody believes it, even though there's no basis for it in reality. And economists keep putting out papers after papers after papers, graphs after graph after graph to show that this is false. And no, it's already so inculcated into there is no such thing. But I think you know what I mean, collective consciousness, collective idea, the idea that people have about what is true, that it's too late. You can't correct it. The rugged communitarian says, you guys are wrong about protectionism and tariffs. Unfortunately, I will likely make a video for the future showing this. You can make whatever videos you want, but I might be wrong on a lot of different things, but protectionism and tariffs is not one of them. This has been an issue that has been clear and unequivocal and unquestionable really since Adam Smith, since the Wealth of Nations. Every single economist in the world knows this, with a few exceptions who just don't know economists who don't know economics. That happens, and it is just absolutely of all the topics in economics, of all the topics of understanding of economics, the one of the few that the evidence is so unbelievably, overwhelmingly exists is the benefits of free trade, or the benefits of zero tariffs, or the benefits of unilateral zero tariffs, or whatever however you want to call it. Oh, land value taxes. Okay, it's one of those. Okay, we can ignore him. It doesn't matter. All right, so that's Trump's op-ed. Again, uniquely bad in a sense of the sheer number of lies that it contains. Uniquely bad in how easy it is to debunk those lies. That is pretty easy and straightforward. It's typical Trump, chest thumping over lies, over deceptions, a kind of blind, ignorant, or just evasive chest thumping. All right, let's talk about the Epstein Files. Isn't this a wonderful topic? So 3 million, I guess, documents were released from regarding the Epstein Files. 3 million. And it includes photos, it includes supposedly videos, it includes documents, it includes emails, but it also includes, and this is fascinating, it also includes all kinds of weirdos and wackos and crazy people writing to the Department of Justice saying, Jeffrey Epstein is really an alien, and he's got a Indian communications center at the bottom. I don't know if that's one of the emails, but that's the equivalent, right? Just people, all kinds of crazy people writing in all kinds of crazy theories about and claiming them as fact about Jeffrey Epstein. So, and there's no filtering. There's no, okay, this we know are wackos. This is what the FBI assumed are wackos, and these are true emails. There's even an email that Jeffrey Epstein is writing to himself. If you look at who it's from and who it's from Jeffrey Epstein. It's to Jeffrey Epstein. But the way the email is written, it's as if it's an email to Bill Gates. It's a long rambling email. He's upset at Gates and rambling, and it's all over the place. And in it, he accuses Bill Gates of getting STDs and then trying to get antibiotics to secretly place in his wife's, to give to his wife so that she doesn't get the STD, something like that. Anyway, Bill Gates has already denied the story, which he's likely to do. But the email is not even sent to Bill Gates. It's just an email Epstein is writing to himself. Who knows if what's in it is true or not? So what we've got is gazillions of these emails and files and maybe videos and lots of photographs. There's funny photographs with, it turns out that Mamdani's mother seems pretty close to Jeffrey Epstein. So now there's a rumor online. Just so I want to keep you, I want to make sure you guys are up to speed on the latest conspiracy theories. I would hate for you to lose out on the latest conspiracy theories because you're listening to Yaron Brook Show and not delving into the dark corners of Twitter. Actually, this isn't even the dark corners. This isn't mainstream. Anyway, there's a conspiracy theory now that Mamdani is actually the child of Jeffrey Epstein and Mamdani's mother. Anyway, there's a bunch of photos of Mamdani as a baby with Jeffrey Epstein and his mother. There's photos of Mamdani as a boy with Jeffrey Epstein and Bill Clinton and Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos and Mamdani's mother. I mean, the photos are pretty revealing of just the scope and the scale of what Jeffrey Epstein's social circle, even after he was found, guilty of basically procuring sex from an underage prostitute. So anyway, so what do you make of all of this? Because it's very hard to tell what to make of it because of just the scope and the scale of all of this. But one thing it clarifies, something we knew. I don't think it's new, but we suspected, and now we know even more. Jeffrey Epstein's social circle was massive, and it included many of the leading figures in the world out there. I mean, there's emails to and from Jeffrey Epstein to Peter Attia. You remember Peter Attia, the doctor that I recommended, whose book I recommended? He's somehow in this circle of people associated with Jeffrey Epstein. There is no question that Epstein was a people's person. He was a schmoozer. He knew how to attract people. He knew how to bring people to his side. He was a smart guy. He was an interesting conversationalist. He knew a lot of stuff. He was interested in science and mathematics and a lot of other things. And he managed to connect and be connected with a lot of people. And really the top people in our culture. There are few people who resisted him, anyone from Noam Chomsky to Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos and Mamdani's mother and Bill Clinton and Donald Trump. There's emails there suggesting that maybe Donald Trump raped a 13-year-old. Again, there's no evidence. There's nothing you can prosecute on. If there was, believe me, the Biden administration would have used that. There's just a lot of innuendo. There's a lot of allegations. It's clear that Jeffrey Epstein engaged in big sex parties and orgies. It's pretty clear that some of the women, a lot of the women at these sex parties were of age, but some of them were underaged. Some of them were prostitutes, some of them were not. Some of them were being clearly physically exploited by Epstein, and he was breaking the law because many of them were underage, and that many of his friends partook in these sex parties. Exactly who, we don't know. Exactly when, we don't know. We know that these happened in his house in New York, in the island, even in his home in Arizona. It happened all these places. He was procuring women for different places. There's now, from this trove of information, there's evidence to suggest that he tried to get Prince Andrew, or hooked up Prince Andrew with another woman. Again, we don't know who she is. All the names are redacted. So he was a creep. But he was a socially adept creep, a kind of creep who understood people and knew how to manipulate them, knew how to befriend them, knew how to have relationships with them, managed to somehow befriend the most influential people in the world, while he was alive, and seduce them, maybe with women, maybe just with his intelligent chatter, maybe with his beautiful island, a beautiful home, all of the above, and different people, maybe different varieties. My guess is he was like a chameleon who could change. He could be very sophisticated with some people and be locker room down dirty with other people. He was a manipulator. He was a sexual predator. He clearly raped and exploited young girls, not children, but young girls as young as 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So, clearly illegal and clearly wrong and clearly immoral. And this guy was a bad guy. And yet, people who attain power often think I think the people associated with Jeffrey Epstein, people who attain power often think they're above the law. Many of the people who we associated with him grew up as geeks who probably didn't have much experience and much connection with women. Suddenly you have these beautiful women draped on your arm and at your beck and call and do whatever you want. And these people were seduced. These people were seduced by that. They had immense wealth, but I guess some of them felt like there was something missing, and sex was it, or the adventure of it, whatever the appeal was. These people appealed to it. What's stunning is how everybody knows everybody in these circles. The so-called elite. There is, in a sense, a cultural, business, and political elite that all schmooze with one another. And that is not a good thing. That is, particularly when you mingle it with politics, it's a bad thing. And when you mingle it with sex, it's a very bad thing. It's a very bad thing. There's no evidence from any of these that he was a Mossad agent or CIA agent or an agent of anybody. There's no evidence that he used the tapes that he probably had of some of these sex parties to blackmail people. It seems like he got his money more from, savvy tax advice and investment advice and economic advice and just being friendly and people being grateful for all the connections and all the fun times that he was giving them. It seems likely that he killed himself. It's unlikely that he was murdered, although you can't completely rule it out. But with the stuff coming out, you have to be careful because there's a lot of batshit crazy stuff that is stated there from people clearly who are not quite with it. So you have to use your mind because none of us, nobody trusts the gatekeepers, and therefore we all become our own gatekeepers, which requires you to become a gatekeeper, which requires you to really think critically of the stuff you're reading and not just accept it for face value. So if you're going to delve into these files, you got to be critical and you got to really think about what it is you're reading and what it is that exists. But what is revealed is behavior that is disturbing on the part of very successful men who have everything and who, for some reason, were attracted to Jeffrey Epstein and to his kind of sexual racket. It's disappointing and it's disturbing, but it appears to be a reality. And again, political leaders, Bill Clinton is everywhere in these pictures. Trump was everywhere and is extensively mentioned in the various correspondence and emails all the way up to 2019, all the way up to Epstein's death. He was still dabbling in influence on the administration, who gets appointments, and people were getting his advice on who should be appointed to what within the Trump administration. And of course, left and right figures from business, from and from just the broader culture. So disappointing. I'm disappointed in people like Peter Attia and people like that, that somehow got entangled with him and found this, I don't know, found this relationship of value and of interest. It's very disappointing, and it's very unfortunate to see and to experience. Now, again, he was a master at this. So you could brush it off in the sense of they were all seduced by a master seducer, but it's not a good enough excuse. And some of the emails that you're seeing, some of these people are using language and discussing things. I mean, Elon Musk, by the way, Elon Musk telling him that he wants to come to one of his wild parties on the island, and when can they schedule it? So Elon Musk is in there as well. Now, Elon Musk is denying it. He never went. He never this. We don't know. The fact is, we don't know. And but why was he even writing this? Why was he even participating in this? Why was he even But you know, there are people out there who are incredibly seductive. Who are good, they're good with other people. They're second-handed in that sense. They know. They can feed off of your emotions. They know what to give you to make a connection. And people lose their objective judgment when encountering these kind of people. They get a kind of visibility that maybe they don't get in other parts of their lives, and they jump on it. And it's super sad, and it's super disappointing. All right, let's see. That is what I've got about Epstein. More stuff will come out. People are going through this. We will see what the evidence ultimately shows, but I think that basically captures it. He's a creep, and he attracted a lot of powerful people because he was a people person and gave people what they wanted and found their weakness, and sex was a weakness for a lot of these guys. This is a pretty amazing story, published in the Wall Street Journal. I think it was also on Friday. Is that right? Yeah, no. This is on Saturday. So this is after Donald Trump published his op-ed. This is a story about the sheikh Tanun bin Zayed Al Nahyan, who is an Abu Dhabi royal. Right, was an Abu Dhabi royal. He is the brother of the president of Abu Dhabi. He's often referred to as the spy sheikh. He's the brother to the United Arab Emirates president. The government's national security advisor, I guess that's another brother, as well as the leader of the oil-richest country's largest wealth fund. He oversees more than, this is him, so he oversees the largest wealth fund. He oversees more than $1.3 trillion, which is funded by his personal fortune and by state money. He invests in everything from fish farms to AI to surveillance to, he's a big player in the world of investments. I mean, one of the really distorting things that exist in the world of investments today is just how much money these sheiks wield from the oil revenue, and disproportionately they're investors in pretty much every worthwhile venture out there in the world. Anyway, it turns out that the sheikh made an investment in about a week, 4 days before the inauguration. The sheikh made an investment in the Trump family's, crypto venture, cryptocurrency venture. He basically purchased 49% of the company. So 51% is owned by Trump, 49% is now owned by the sheikh from the UAE, the United Arab Emirates. He paid half up front, $187 million directly to Trump family entities. At least $31 million was slated to flow to entities with affiliated with the family of, who's the other big guy within the Trump administration that does this kind of stuff. $31 million flow to entities affiliated with the family of Steve Witkoff. who is the World Liberty, it's called World Liberty, he's a co-founder of World Liberty. This is a few weeks after he had already been named the U.S. envoy for the Middle East. It's kind of convenient to give the U.S. envoy the Middle East $31 million when you know he's going to be negotiating on behalf of the Trump administration. This deal was unprecedented in American history. A foreign government official taking a major ownership in an incoming U.S. president's company. I mean, you can't make this up. And again, this is not some conspiracy in some rag in some corner of the internet. This is the Wall Street Journal. Now, it turns out that, I mean, that's not the end of it. That's just the beginning, of course. Of course, under the, Tahanun is, for a while now, been trying to get into the AI hardware business. He tried with the Biden administration and didn't get very far. Basically, the Biden administration was worried that if they allowed the UAE to get the latest technology, they would siphon it off, they would divert it to China. The particular concerns was that one of Tahun's own companies, an AI firm called G42, you had ties to sanctioned tech company Huawei, the Chinese Huawei, and other Chinese firms. Now, the company says it severed ties with China in late 2023, but U.S. intelligence agencies were still concerned, were worried. But once he made this investment, made this investment in the Trump-Witkoff entities, and by the way, the 133 million was just a down payment. The total amount of money transferred to Trump is going to be around $500 million, about $500 million in total for the total of the deal. So after Trump gets into office, Tahanun, the sheikh, meets multiple times with Trump, Witkoff, and other U.S. officials. In March, he visited the White House, where the sheikh told officials he was eager to work with the United States on AI. AI is a real strength of the United Arab Emirates, you might know. And 2 months later, 2 months after the March meeting, the Trump administration committed to giving the UAE access to around 500,000 of the most advanced AI chips a year. Every year they get 500,000 of the most advanced chips. Enough to build one of the world's largest or biggest AI data center clusters. The framework agreement called for roughly 1/5 of the chips to go to G42. That's the company that had historically at least, ties with China. So they would get 100,000 chips. Huge coup for the ruling family. And real questions about national security. National security. As we said, 187 went to the Trump family, 187 million, $31 million went to Witkoff family. Another 31 million was directed to an entity tied to, I guess, Zach Folkman and Chase Hero. And the journal couldn't determine at this point when the next payment, the second half of the investment, was going to be made. This is pretty amazing, right? I mean, Trump's real estate company has courted deals with foreign companies since the election, and president has accepted gifts from foreign governments, including a $400 million luxury airliner from Qatar. But the World Liberty deal is the only known case of a foreign government official purchasing a major stake in a Trump company after his election. I don't know. I mean, I think the facts speak to themselves. I don't think I need to give any color to this. I mean, this is corruption on a scale that is hard to imagine any president ever engaging in. This is corruption on a scale that should be, I mean, easily impeachable. This is what you should be impeaching presidents for. Their board influence with a $500 million investment in Trump. This is a check to the Trump family. I mean, it's insane that nobody's talking about this. This story in the Wall Street Journal, but it'll probably die. Nothing will happen for this. This is one among many. And on top of that, it's not only a bribe, a straight out bribe, and they got something for it. What they got for it is a national security risk. That's impeachable, just in and of itself. Nobody seems to care. Nobody seems to care. That's the reality in which we live. All right, let's see. Wow, it's late. Okay, and we got a lot of questions. What do we? Okay, let's do Iran, Republican defeat, and some good news. We can do that quickly. Okay, Iran. It's hard to tell what's going on with Iran. So, U.S. is saying they're going to be meeting with the Iranians in Turkey in a few days to start negotiations for an Iranian deal. The United States has certain criteria for the deal. Iran has already rejected all that criteria, and Iranian diplomats tell the Washington Post no negotiation is possible under the current situation. Trump's condition for negotiations are unrealistic and unnegotiable, and yet there's going to be negotiations in Turkey in a little while. Is that real? It's hard to tell. You read these conflicting news stories constantly, and it's hard to tell what's reality and what's not. Trump insists that he wants a deal. He keeps saying he wants a deal. In the meantime, more and more equipment is flowing into the Middle East. You could argue that all of this is just delay tactics while Trump builds up basically air defense systems in the Middle East to defend Israel, to defend U.S. assets in Jordan, in Qatar, in Saudi Arabia, in UAE, and elsewhere. Maybe. I just don't know at this point. I mean, I thought that this weekend the United States would attack. The assets were in place, the offensive assets. Maybe the defensive assets are not in place, but even that, I read conflicting stories. Some say, oh no, it's already there. Some say it's still on the way. I just don't know. I don't know if Trump is looking for an excuse for something to happen so he can justify it. I don't know if he really wants to negotiate, if he really wants a deal and think it's possible. Witkoff clearly keeps pushing for a deal. Witkoff is in the pocket of the Qataris, unsurprising. They've offered him, they've given a lot of money to his family businesses. Hard to tell exactly what is going on in Iran and if there will be an attack, and if that attack happens, when it will happen. I mean, a report I just read, American airstrikes on Iran are not imminent, U.S. officials say, because the Pentagon is moving in additional air defenses to better protect Israel, Arab allies, and American forces in the event of retaliation by Iran and a potentially prolonged conflict. That's what officials tell the Wall Street Journal. But again, I read other stuff that says the assets are already in place, so hard to tell. In the meantime, in Iran, it's just horrific, right? An entire generation, Generation Z, the generation that really propelled these protests, the generation that went out for the women's revolution a couple of years ago and led the demonstrations in the streets this time, that generation, has suffered unbelievable casualties. I mean, they're the ones who got killed in the streets. They're the ones who've been murdered. Tens of thousands of them, it seems, have their lives. They're either dead or wounded. I mean, it's just horrific what has happened to young Iranians and the extent. Almost half the population in Iran is under 30. So, in terms of numbers, maybe a few tens of thousands is not that much, but these are the best. These are the ones who went out. These are the ones who wanted to fight for their freedom. These are the ones who believed in it. And these are the ones who got killed. How many exactly got killed, we still don't know. Whether it's 6,000 or whether it's 36,000, we still don't have, or more, we still don't have an accurate number. All we know is the horror, and we're getting more and more information out of Iran with the names and pictures and videos of the kids that got killed. I mean, if you follow this kind of stuff on Twitter, as I do, it's heart-wrenching. It's heart-wrenching to see the photos of these kids, the promise of their lives extinguished. And the Iranians are still hopeful and still convinced that Trump is going to come to their rescue. There are pictures all over that people are posting in Tehran of pictures of Donald Trump with statements underneath that saying Iranian people are waiting for you. Again, Donald Trump promised to react, right? We're locked and loaded. We're ready to go. That was weeks ago. He said, go out into the streets, take the streets. We have your back. We will support you. Nothing so far. Now, whether he'll live up to that, who knows? It's Donald Trump. You just can't tell. So I continue to monitor, continue to watch it. We'll continue to fill you in, and we'll see how it goes. Now, one of the consequences of Trump's presidency, the fact that there is price inflation, the reality of ICE, the fact that Trump is incredibly unpopular right now and his policies are incredibly unpopular right now in America, is the fact that Republicans are suffering in the polls, and you can see poll after poll after poll show how Trump is unpopular and Republicans are unpopular, and this is really worrisome for the Republicans in terms of the coming election. Anyway, there was an election yesterday, I think it was yesterday, in Texas that should have been a slam dunk for Republicans. This was a Texas state election for state senator, so it doesn't have national implications other than in what it suggests. It was held, I think, in Fort Worth, in a district that Trump won by 17 points. So a deep red district. And yesterday there was a special election for the state Senate between a Democrat and Republican. Donald Trump backed the Republican. Indeed, a day before the election, he wrote Lee Wabja, whatever her name is, a Republican running for the state Senate in the suburbs of Fort Worth, Texas, will be a great candidate and has my complete and total endorsement. Thank you for your attention for this matter. So Trump stepped into the race and endorsed the candidate. Lee, the Republican, got clobbered. It wasn't even close. It lost by 13 points in a district that Trump carried by 17. That is a stunning turnout. Democrats, of course, are celebrating this and hoping that this is an indication of what's to come in the midterms. But if this is any indication, if this is representative, it's not just that Lee is just a terrible candidate and ran an awful campaign. What does this say about the midterms? Texas could be in play for the Senate. Not only could the Democrats take the House, which is certainly likely, very likely. They could take the Senate, which is unlikely, but they could if this voting pattern continues. If the disgust of the American people with Republicans is this deep, then hold on. Republicans are in deep doo-doo. They're deep trouble, and they deserve it. They deserve it. Because they've put themselves lockstep with Trump. They won't question him. They won't challenge him. They won't do anything. So they have bought into his agenda, full stock and barrel. And therefore, the election, the midterm election for the House and Senate will be about Trump's agenda, and they won't be able to run from it. I mean, it's a 30-point shift in Texas in this one district. Can you extrapolate that to the whole state? If that's the case, then they win the Senate. If they win the Senate, well, Trump's in deep trouble because he could get impeached. But, Republicans should not lose the Senate by any stretch of the imagination. But look, they elected Trump, and they deserve whatever's coming. I don't know that we deserve it, but they deserve whatever's coming. Trump was asked about this election in Texas and said, I don't know anything about it. I don't know who this woman is. I don't know who Lee is. I know nothing about it, he said. What are they talking about? When he endorsed her and tweeted about it the day before. All right. Let's see. What did I want to do here? We got that. Yeah, I promised you some good news. Okay, so a few items of good news. that we can talk about that come from the world, as usual, of science and healthcare and things like that, because that's where there's good news. Nothing in politics is good news. So let's jump in with some of the good news parts of this. Let's do this just for fun. All right. Here's the CDC. The CDC reported that U.S. life expectancy, which, if you remember, was declining in the 20-teens and really took a beating during COVID. As of 2024, the end of 2024, so this data is always a year behind, is at an all-time high. All-time high. So 2024 life expectancy in the United States was 79 years old. That is surpasses the pre-COVID levels, and it's an all-time high for the United States. That probably has a lot to do with the fact that murders are down, addiction deaths are down, obviously COVID deaths are down, but what people called in the mid-2000s deaths of despair are all significantly down. That was what was dragging life expectancy in the United States downwards, and once that comes down, murder, drug overdose, and suicides, also car accidents are down. Those factors drove U.S. life expectancy downwards, and as those come down from their highs, life expectancy in the United States is rising. So that's good. That's good. Maybe we'll catch up with some of these other countries that keep telling us it's all about socialized healthcare. That's why they have longer life expectancy. No, it's because you have better lifestyles, you have less obesity, you do less stupid things like overdose, and you have less, I guess, angst among certain people. So there's, I don't know if there's less suicide per capita. That's something to look into. But most of it is lifestyle choices. Americans make really, really dumb lifestyle choices, and that's why life expectancy is lower than the U.S. than, let's say, Europe or Japan. It has more to do with that than anything else. All right, here's some other stuff. Researchers have published the full results of the largest randomized trial of AI cancer screening to date. Right, so this is AI screening cancer. In this case, I think it is mammograms, so screening for breast cancer. So they compared mammograms read by one radiologist, assisted by an AI, with the standard, which is two radiologists looking at every scan. The AI-supported process cut radiologist workload by 44%. That's huge. And detected 29% more cancers without additional fake positives, false positives, right? Without additional mistakes. Women who received a negative result during the AI-assisted mammogram ended up having 12% fewer cancer diagnoses before their next scheduled screening than those in the control group, suggesting that the AI screen missed fewer aggressive cancers, fewer false positives, saved 44% of time, and detected 29 more cases of cancer. An overwhelming, unequivocal, fantastic result that is going to save a lot of women's lives. A lot of women's lives, and catch it early, so maybe not only save their lives, but make treatment much less invasive and much less horrific. Because when you catch cancer early, there are many, many more treatment options than when you catch it late. More. The Health Minds study, which is a large survey of U.S. college students, mental health. So it's a survey of mental health. So this is self-reported mental health. This is not a clinician. What the survey does, which is done every year, showed significant improvements in mental health of American students between 2022 and 2025. The share reporting severe depression fell from 23% to 18%, anxiety 37 to 32, loneliness 58 to 52, and suicidal thoughts from 15% to 11%. And indeed, suicides are down, as well as overdoses are down, which is consistent. So you hear a lot about the mental health crisis among young people. You hear a lot about how awful it is and how everybody's depressed and how everybody's suicidal, how all things are awful and just horrific. Hey, here's an indication. Maybe it's not as bad as people say. Maybe it's actually improving. Maybe in this one realm things are getting better. Again, hard to tell. This is just one survey, but it does seem like there's steady improvement from the post-COVID era to today, from 2022 to 2025. Finally, a technology medical cross-reference thing that is amazing and actually an Elon Musk company. Neuralink. This is amazing to me. Neuralink has now implanted its brain chips in 21 people with paralysis, allowing them to use digital tools like computers and cameras with their minds. Just amazing. According to the company blog post, some chip recipients can now operate a computer as fast or faster than the typical able-bodied user. And that's pretty amazing. And think about the massive improvement in quality of life for these people. And just extrapolate from this on what will be possible in the future. With this kind of technology of putting chips in the brain. Sounds a little spooky, but to enhance all kinds of functions and to be able for you to communicate directly with a computer. You don't have to have a computer. Computer's right there on a chip in the brain itself, and you can, monitor it and you can see the results. And pretty amazing stuff, guys. Pretty amazing stuff. It's pretty stunning how much progress can be made even in an environment like the one we live in, even in a world as statist, as corrupt, as controlling, as manipulated, as gone down awful as the political world in which we live. All right, guys, that is the news for this February 1st, 2026. It's a Sunday. All right, let's jump in because we're running a little late. I have to finish at 6:30. Maybe we can run a few minutes later, but we have to finish at 6:30. So let me jump in with your questions, and there are a lot of them. So thank you. A lot of questions and a lot of money combination. I like that combination, and really appreciate it. All right, let's start with Ryan. 140 Canadian dollars. When a president has to write an op-ed to defend his policies, doesn't that mean she has already lost I long for a rational world? It's hard to tell what he's lost. I mean, all the polls suggest he's lost. Public opinion seems to be very antagonistic to his views. Certainly, Trump lost The Economist. He lost the Wall Street Journal. The Wall Street Journal is very critical of his tariff policies. So I don't think, so I think he knows he's lost. And he's trying to somehow win them over. The only way he knows how to win people over is to lie to them, to manipulate them, to seduce them with fake good news. And that's what he's trying to do. And will it be successful for some people? It'll work on some people. It's not going to work in the editors of the Wall Street Journal. They're not going to change their mind. The op-ed editors, the editorial editors. But yeah, it does show a little bit of sign of desperation. He feels like, I think right now, that he's losing the PR war. He's losing the PR war over affordability, inflation. He's losing the PR war over the tariffs. He's losing the PR war over ICE, and he's trying to gain some traction. So you'll see him publish more. You'll see him speak more. You'll see him. I mean, he speaks every day to the press, so it's hard to believe that he could speak more. But he's going to try to be more assertive, and try to move the country in his direction, because otherwise, he knows he's going to get crushed in the midterms. And he's not looking forward to dealing with a Democratic majority. Now, again, I also think he's working on a plan to maybe overturn those elections. But he'd much rather not lose them to begin with, and then he doesn't have to engage in that plan. All right, Clock, $50. Thank you. The language mental health professionals often use suggests they view non-altruistic behavior as sociopathic or antisocial exploitative. That must destroy so many people seeking therapy, trying to overcome undeserved altruistic guilt. So I don't know if that's true. Now, I'll take you at your word. I'll take you that it is true. I don't know. I mean, it's a good question to ask Gina if that's indeed the case. But there's no question that for 2,000 years now, we have been conditioned to believe that the opposite of altruism is not rational long-term self-interest. The opposite of altruism is lying, cheating, stealing, SOB. And that there is no possibility, there is no option of being objectively egoistic, rationally egoistic, that just doesn't exist. That the only alternatives in ethics are altruism, or either to sacrifice or to demand the sacrifice of others to you. You sacrifice to them or they sacrifice to you. Those are the two options. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if that has found its way into the space of psychology and into terms like sociopath or psychopath. I don't know other social kind of diseases, because I mean, really, in philosophy, in much of philosophy and in much of ethics, it's the only alternatives we're being presented. In day-to-day life, it's the only alternatives to be presented. And again, even if you talk to thoughtful people, they can't seem to really get their heads around the idea of rational self-interest, of a selfishness focused on the rational pursuit of values, of happiness, of flourishing, of success in life. To them, being selfish is evil. That's it. It's just evil. There's no question about it. Selfishness is exploitation. Selfishness is being so-called antisocial. So yes, it is horrific. It destroys the capacity. I think it's what encourages, not encourages. I think a lot of people are drawn to nihilism, to narcissism, to hedonism. Because of that, they don't want to be altruistic. They don't want to be altruistic. They rebel against altruism. But when they rebel against altruism, all they've got left is to be a jerk. It's to be a narcissist. It's to be an exploiter. It's to be a manipulator. But they'd rather be that than an altruist, because altruism is boring. Altruism sucks. Altruism is not a life. That's easy to see. And you can see why a life of manipulation, a life of crime, a life of Jeffrey Epstein seems appealing in comparison to altruism. And so they're drawn to that, instead of drawn to a life of production, a life of egoism, a life of rationality, a life of reason, a life of... They don't know that option exists. They don't know that option exists, or even if they've been exposed to it, it doesn't really connect with them. It doesn't really... They don't completely understand it because of altruism's dominance in the culture. So altruism's effect in the culture is not just to make people altruistic. It's to make people reject altruism with all these evil ideologies. Thank you, Clark. Really appreciate that. Let's see, another $50 from James. This administration has adapted enforcement practices so detached from constitutional limits and from the human beings affected by these malicious policies. The courts are going to have to clamp down, or there will be violent civil unrest. I mean, I definitely think the courts will have to clamp down. They have to figure out how to do this. We've got this case in Minnesota where the judges said, ICE has ignored the courts on 79 different occasions. ICE has just ignored the courts. At some point, that has to, bubble up to the higher courts, and the courts have to slap it down. I mean, we're still waiting for the Supreme Court to rule on tariffs. Tariffs is a good example of, practices that are unconstitutional, and it seems like the court is hesitant to actually knock them down or to rule against them. They've delayed their ruling now for weeks, really for over a month. It was supposed to be ruled before New Year's. So hard to tell what's going on in the Supreme Court. But at some point, yes, this is going to have to The courts are going to have to do something. And then the question is, how do they enforce it? The question is, what happens when Trump just continues to ignore it? And I don't know what the answer to that is. The courts don't have their own police. The courts don't have a way to enforce their rulings if the executive decides to ignore them. Again, the mechanism is impeachment. If the president ignores the court, Congress should impeach him. That's their job. That's their constitutional responsibility. But will they? Alex is here at the conference. He's in his room somewhere watching this. Cool. A great talk yesterday, he says. I hope it gets posted. Always good to see you. Thanks, Alex. Sadly, they're not recording these talks. They're not videotaping. So now that I have this talk, I'll have to give it again somewhere where it's videotaped, and we can get it out for greater distribution. It is a shame that it wasn't recorded. It's a shame it's not going to be out there because, yeah, I thought it was an interesting talk. I thought people could learn a lot from it, and I could probably refine it and make it better, and give it somewhere on some occasion and get it taped. All right, we're now moving to $20 questions. We've got a few of those. Justin, is the United States government somehow convinced the Fed to issue them enough currency to pay off the government debt in full? Could you lead me through the logical chain as to how this would increase the real cost of milk? Yeah, I mean, so the total government debt today is $37 trillion. So the government basically tells the Fed, we will issue $37 trillion worth of bonds, and you, the Fed, will buy them with cash, right? So that the government would then have $37 trillion, new dollars, completely new printed dollars. Now, they won't be printed, they'll be electronic, but these are dollars that never existed anywhere else, right? Now, the government would then take those dollars and basically send them to bondholders. They would buy back all the bonds of the people holding that debt. So suddenly, a bunch of people all over the world, but mainly Americans, would suddenly have 37 trillion more dollars, literal money. Now, they could take that money and they might buy stocks with it. They might make investments with it. They won't buy government bonds because, let's say, government bond market is now shut because we paid off all the debt. That money now, or they might just put it in the bank. Now, if they put it in bank, the bank has that money and the bank can then lend it out to people who might want to buy cars, might want to buy homes. And, that money might be invested, but the people who sell, the people who have the new money, their stocks, will now have more money to go out and buy groceries and buy all kinds of other stuff. Suddenly people feel like there's 37 trillion more dollars circulating around in the economy. And some of those people, not all of them, some of that money will become bank reserves and won't budge, but much of that money will start circulating in the economy. And by circulating in the economy, ultimately, people start buying stuff. Now, as demand for goods goes up, as the amount of money chasing a fixed amount of goods, because the number of goods is not going up, the number of goods is fixed, because the number of goods assumed a certain amount of money from before. And suddenly there's 37 trillion more. Prices would start ratcheting it up in order to meet as if demand exceeds supply, prices go up. So prices of goods would start going up, and that's what creates a price inflation in the economy. So stocks would go up because people would buy stocks, but it won't be only stocks, because for every stock you buy, drive the price up, somebody is selling, right? And the person who's selling now has cash. What do they do with the cash? They could easily go out into the marketplace and buy a new stereo, buy a new TV, buy food, go to nice restaurants, whatever it is they do. But as their demand increases on the goods that are available, their prices will go up. And that's inflation. And it would go up a lot, because 37 trillion, I don't know what the current total supply of dollars is, but 37 trillion is a lot of money. It's a lot of money. So that would drive up inflation. It would drive down the value of the dollar because there'd be more dollars, so the value in terms of other currencies of every dollar in circulation would be lower. But that would drive up inflation a lot. That would be hyperinflation. You would get inflation of I don't have a number because I don't know what the base is, but it would be easily double digit inflation, maybe more than that, for a while until the 37 trillion had circulated into the economy, had priced everything up. All prices went up, and assuming the Fed wasn't doing any more of this, wasn't buying any more of the government, wasn't printing any more money, and then there'd be a new level of prices, and things would stabilize at some new level, some new plateau of prices. But yes, a sudden increase in the money supply of $37 trillion would dramatically increase the cost of pretty much everything. Thank you, Justin. Let me know if that answered the question. JMA. Many oppose capitalism as morally selfish, while its defenders emphasize economic outcomes like lower prices and higher quality. Why not defend it on moral grounds of individual happiness regardless of the economic results? Yeah, I agree. That's what I do, right? Capitalism is moral because selfishness is moral. Capitalism is moral because selfishness is good. Capitalism is moral because capitalism makes it possible for moral people to achieve their happiness. Capitalism is good because it is consistent. It is consistent with human happiness. It's consistent with whoops, one second. I need to do a copy paste here. It's consistent with the freedom of the individuals to use their minds to pursue their values, to achieve their happiness. That's the essential characteristic of capitalism, and that's what's necessary for happiness, and that's essentially what morality is all about. It's about pursuing your happiness. It's about using your mind in pursuit of your happiness. So in pursuit of your life, which is ultimately the goal of happiness. So absolutely, that is the way to defend capitalism. That's what we try to do. The economics matter because the reality is that wealth is a part of that pursuit of happiness. The ability to pursue whatever job you want, to start whatever company you want, to innovate, are all part of the pursuing happiness. So the economic side of it, the economic freedom side of it is essential. But yeah, capitalism is moral because it leaves people free to pursue their selfish values. And then you have to defend selfishness. And that's where the rubber hits the road. And that is what makes the defense of capitalism difficult. Because it's easy, relatively easy, to convince people about economic issues. Relatively easy, not easy. It's really hard to change people's minds about morality, about ethics. Because, as I said earlier, altruism has been so ingrained in us, so pounded into our souls by the culture, by our philosophers, by our teachers, by our mothers, by our preachers, by everybody. So yeah, great question. And the answer is we should, absolutely. Not regardless of economic results, because imagine if capitalism destroyed wealth and we all got poorer. Well, then there'd have to be a flaw in the system. We'd have to say something is wrong. The moral is the practical is the moral. Part of what makes capitalism moral is that it enhances human life. It enhances human life not just by leaving people free to be selfish, but it enhances human life by the fact that when people are free and selfish, their lives get better, materially as well as spiritually. So it's all integrated. It's all one. All right, Charles Bob, what's another review, which I will start getting to those reviews when I get home after this trip. So in a week and a half, maybe in 2 weeks, on the weekend in 2 weeks, I'll start doing reviews. Please review Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Season 1, Episode 19, Duet. All right. I hear Deep Space Nine is really, really good. So looking forward to reviewing that one. Okay, Rand says, hey, Yaron, a few weeks ago, you said we should avoid tribalism and numbers in politics to create change. I disagree. Real change requires politics. For example, in Australia, passing laws requires 76 MPs, 39 senators. Thank you for the hard work and clarity. Real change requires politics. Yes, it does require politics. The question is, how much resources to devote to politics? So first, avoid tribalism. By all costs, avoid tribalism. Tribalism will not bring about change. Tribalism will bring about destruction. You will not gain with tribalism. You need numbers. You need numbers in order to pass bills. You need numbers in order to win elections. But that's not tribalism. Tribalism is the adherence to the tribe. It's following them in everything. And the tribes as they exist today are all evil. They're all wrong. So whichever tribe you affiliated with, you're going to support evil ideas, some good ideas and many evil ideas. You shouldn't do that. You should fight for political changes on the particulars. And to fight for political changes on the particulars requires you to convince a lot of people. Now, I say avoid politics for most of you because most of the time politics is a losing proposition. It's hard. It's a diversion from your regular life. It's not particularly enjoyable, and we lose most of the time. But if you like politics, if you're interested in politics, if there's a particular issue you want to fight on, go for it. And to do that, you absolutely need numbers. You absolutely need to convince a lot of people. You need to win the elections. You need to get the votes. But you don't do that by compromising, and you don't do that by endorsing evil ideas. If you do it by endorsing evil ideas, then you ultimately undermine whatever success you achieve. So if that point didn't come across when I first talked about it, hopefully this was a corrective. Thank you, Randall Stalling. Randall, sorry. The way it's presenting on screen, it's hard for me to read. Michael, have you been on ICE's recruitment website? It's largely racist dog whistles. The nation that stormed the beaches of Normandy, the most powerful government in the world, is now mainstreaming white supremacy. Yeah, it's disgusting. I haven't been on that website. I'll look at it. But it's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. It's one thing to have racists out there in the world. It's something completely different when the government sanctions those racists, reinforces that racism, embraces that racism, advertises that racism, institutionalizes that racism. Now, again, I don't think this represents the majority. So I think, if this administration can be defeated, then maybe they will change their tone. If this administration can be defeated, maybe we can reverse this trend in the future. But yeah, I mean, everything about ICE is all about skin color. It's all about xenophobia. It's fundamentally a racist agenda that they are pursuing. Why are they escalating in Minneapolis? They're escalating in Minneapolis because Somalis are black. And this is completely consistent with the whole heritage American notion of the new right, the J.D. Vance right, the Stephen Miller right, which is all about heritage Americans. Yeah, Somalis are not heritage Americans. They're the opposite, and therefore they are the target. They're going to be the target of abuse. They don't help themselves with the fraud, but there's plenty of fraud, as I've said. There's plenty of welfare fraud in basically every American state. Welfare is rife with fraud, particularly the welfare that was handed out during COVID, and yet we go after the Somali more than we go after the fraud that was announced in Mississippi and the fraud that was announced in California and other places. It's everywhere. You can't avoid fraud when you have a welfare state as big as ours and as disorganized and easy to manipulate as ours. James, the future is not something you wait for, it's something you create. Yes, that is the right attitude. The future is something you create, and your soul is not something you wait for. The soul is something you create. Your destiny, your character, it's all about self-creation. Life is about what you create, what you build, what you make in yourself and in the world out there. The rest you can't control. That's what you can control. Ryan, have you looked into masterclass as a way to broaden your reach? Peter Tia has a class I am watching. Maybe the revenue would not be worth the time. Yeah, I'll have to check it out. I don't know if anybody can do a masterclass on their platform. If you can just rent it out, I don't know what it's like, but I'll check it out. You know, I get paid well when I do Peterson Academy stuff, and there might be other opportunities like that in the future. So, but yeah, I'll look for anything where I can teach and increase revenue. Revenue is good. Molten Splendor. I'm also embarrassed for my country. Did you see the travel advisory from Germany's Federal Foreign Office warning its citizens to exercise increased caution traveling to the United States and avoid cities such as Minneapolis? True, but sad. Yeah, it really is. I mean, when European countries are putting travel advisories in the United States, and you know, some of this is exaggerated, needling of the Trump administration, but a lot of it's true. We are now antagonistic and inhospitable to foreigners. And if you have an accent, ICE could harass you. Why do you have an accent? Show me your passport. Why are you here? What are you doing here? Are you legal? Show me your papers. Where's your visa? Accent. Skin color, accent. This country is now and by the way, tourism from Europe, tourism from Canada, tourism from Asia have all plummeted, particularly Europe and Canada, plummeted last year, and they will continue to plummet this year. We are antagonizing the rest of the world for no reason. That's the real sad part of it, is there's no reason for this. Zero, nada, nothing. Bread pants. Withstanding the propaganda and projection of Fox without an unshakable certainty in your own reason seems impossible for average people. The static Trump supporter numbers seem to be directly tied to viewership. Yeah, I think that's probably right. It's Fox, and there's a lot of other right-wing media companies, and there's Tucker, and there's Candace, and there's Nick Fuentes, and there's just a lot of influencers who are in that universe. Fox is the one that appeals to older viewers. It's part of Trump's base. Trump is losing many young viewers who have more options, and is maintaining his popularity among older viewers because they're so fixated on Fox and on people like Tucker. So yeah, I think that's absolutely right, and it's a disgrace. Fox is a disgrace. It has been a disgrace for many years. It has been a disgrace since they banned me from appearing on Fox. AJ, what kind of music do you like, Dr. Brook? Anything interesting in Israeli music scene? I love classical music. I've said this many times. My favorite music by far is classical music. I love a whole variety of classical music, but maybe 19th century classical music. So that's the main music that I listen to and embrace. I don't know if there's anything interesting in the Israeli music scene. I'm not current in the Israeli music scene. I'm not current in any music scene, really. I like Israeli music from the 70s and 80s. That's my music, the music I grew up with. And I love that music, but I'm not up to speed on Israeli music of today. Cook, starting to worry that even if President Grandpup enacts regime change in Iran, he might let the worst people in the world decide what replaces it. Yeah, and he's hostile to the son of the Shah, who seems to be a decent guy. And I think Trump's way of doing things is he cuts a deal with a general in Iran to establish a military dictatorship and run things, gets rid of the mullahs, provides oil to the United States with money flowing into a bank account in Qatar, which Trump gets a percentage of, and becomes a puppet of the United States, and does not establish freedom, establishes I mean, something better, I guess, than an Islamic regime, but where freedom is possible for the Iranian people, I think Trump might, what is it? Rescue freedom from the clutches of authority. I don't know. Anyway, bring about authoritarianism when it could be a free country. Yes. Generally, even when Trump does something that looks good, it's going to have a bad outcome. Clark, socialism doesn't eliminate greed. It redirects it from market competition to political competition. Yeah, I mean, I think that's right, but it really depends on what you mean by greed and how you define greed. If you define greed as just wanting more power, more money, then yeah, that's true. If it's a neutral term like that, it certainly can be attributable to political competition as well. But socialism eliminates true selfishness. What it promotes is power lust and exploitation. And some are the exploiters, and some of the ones some are being exploited, and some are doing the exploiting. But what it does is maximizes exploitation on both sides of that transaction. Whoa, lots of questions, little time. Okay, Kim. Almost done with Leonard's Founders of Western Philosophy. It's a great book. Looking for more philosophy book recommendations. I'm not at my library, so I can't just pull the books out to show you. You'll have to ask this question again when I'm back in my studio with a bookcase behind me and the books, so I can pull out and make some recommendations for you. Clark, are the courts almost as afraid of Trump as Congress is? We'll see. I mean, we don't know yet, but I hope not, and I don't think so. Certainly the lower courts have not shown that they are. We'll see if the Supreme Court is or not. We'll find out in the next few days, weeks. I hope not. James, is there an appetite in the West for deregulation? Ironic, since we're moving towards fascism in every other sense. There might be, because I think in Europe at least, there's a realization that regulation is what is killing them economically and what's making them uncompetitive in the world economy. In the United States, at least in certain realms, in energy, for example, there's a lot of deregulation happening. And that's part of the agenda of this administration, so there's a real belief. So yes, we're gaining more control over parts of life and loosening controls in other parts of life. I believe that the loosening is temporary and only is going to be there as long as it serves the authoritarians' purposes. It's not there on the principle of freedom, but it's there for their purposes, to appear, for the economy to do well, because that's part of how they built their legitimacy. Molten Splendor, another $50. Thank you, Molten Splendor. In an earlier episode, you mentioned the importance of incremental steps such as tuition vouchers for private schools, because they are in the right direction of a goal of 100% elimination. Small incremental movements by the government have the same goal. Yes, if they're consistent in principle. That is, if they are targeted towards a goal, a purpose, something. A lot of times the small incrementals are dead ends. They're just incrementals and nothing happens after that. And indeed, sometimes they reverse back. So the people implementing, in order to really be good, the people implementing the small steps have to know where they're heading, have to know what the ultimate purpose is, And yeah, so I worry. I wouldn't want to take every small step the government does that is good as leading towards something very, very positive when that's it. It's going to end at that small step and there's no focus on something more, and that for small steps can be easily reversed. Steve-O, what economic system is there in the United States? It's called a mixed economy, a mixture of capitalism and statism. You'd fail in the citizenship test because, of course, it is a capitalist economy. No, it's not a capitalist economy, so you would be the one failing in the citizenship test. James, to be godly is to have the power to transgress the bounds of the universe. To be manly is to have no need to. That is interesting. That's good. Okay, Liam, know your worth so other people can't decide it for you. Definitely. Know your worth, stand for your worth, defend your worth, and have the self-esteem, basically self-esteem. That's what it means. Kim, do you think Trump actually wrote or he had AI write this? Well, I don't think he wrote it, and I don't think he had AI write it. I think he had his advisors write it, and his advisors are not artificial and they're not intelligent. Liam, astonishing to witness America Nazifying before our eyes. Okay, a little bit. I mean, they're not Nazis yet. I mean, Trump is not ideological. What's going on is bad, but they're not Nazis yet. Hopper, are there card-carrying Nazis in the Trump administration? Maybe they keep the cards hidden, but they're there. Yes, I think there are some, maybe not Nazis, but racist, nationalist, authoritarian types, absolutely. You can see that in the text and the emails of young staffers and young Republicans going back and forth. And somebody said that about 30 to 40% of young Republican staff at the White House are part of this new right, which is not quite Nazis, but pretty close. NM, you said you want people brave enough to be arrested, but not really objectivists. Is the left basically objectivists' muscle on the anti-ICE activism? No, I didn't say I wanted people brave enough to be arrested, but not really objectivist. I don't think I said that. Maybe I did. I don't think I said that. No, I don't want to exploit other people for. I'm glad that the left is fighting this. It's not objectivism's muscle. We're not guiding anything. We're not encouraging anything. Really, they don't listen to us. I'm glad. I prefer America that is 50-50 left-right than 90 left or 90 right. 50-50 keeps them in balance, and I'm glad that the left is brave enough to go out into the streets and challenge the right when it goes nuts. And I hope that the right is brave enough to go into the streets and challenge the left when the left goes nuts. The problem is that then they start going into the streets even when it's not about a nutty policy, like January 6th. They go out into the streets just to defend their own position, and they're willing to engage in violence for it. Hopper, Nazism was a product of colonial Europe's last breath, and then Europe evolved. The U.S. never truly evolved, just changed cosmetics. Well, I think you need to read ominous parallels, and Nazism is a consequence of bad philosophy, bad ideas, and those bad ideas have not disappeared. They've not disappeared from Europe, even they've not disappeared from the United States. Europe is more reluctant to embrace them because they remember where they led the last time. The United States never embraced them, so they don't know. They don't have firsthand experience within American history of where they lead to, and therefore they seem to be more willing to embrace them, more available to be embraced. Not your average algorithm. Tens of thousands of people are out in one of the worst winters we've had in years just to protest ICE. Good. The American people are becoming more and more horrified by what Trump is moving us into. Yes, I think the election in a Republican district in Texas just showed that. They're not, the American people are still independent enough that when the government is doing something that they find clearly offensive and clearly bad, they're going to vote against it and they're going to rebel against it. And you saw that in Texas, and you're seeing that in Minnesota, and good for them. I mean, in that sense, it's exciting to watch. Steve-O, what are the differences among irrational, immoral, and evil acts? If somebody allows himself to become sick by intentionally not eating, is he all three? Well, I mean, generally, the evil is irrational, and evil is just a degree of immorality. Evil is extremely immoral, right? So you can be immoral but not evil, but every evil person is immoral because evil by definition is immoral. And every immoral action and every evil action, or every immoral person, every immoral and evil act is an irrational act. Now, somebody who makes himself sick on purpose, yes, it's certainly immoral and irrational and potentially evil, depending on exactly the motivation, exactly what's going on, but certainly irrational and immoral, that would certainly be both of those. Not your average algorithm. If MAGA collapses dramatically, will free market people be able to swarm in and pick up the pieces like Milei was successful at doing? Well, it's not, in Argentina, it's not clear, right? Because MAGA collapses as an ideology, but the people are still sick people, irrational people, completely irrational. So what MAGA will collapse into some other irrationality. It's unlikely that free market is going to swoop in and attract the people who are attracted to MAGA. They're not going to be attracted to rationality or reason or anything like that. They'll jump on another bandwagon or they'll exit politics altogether. I don't think the people who are committed to MAGA are salvageable. And so there's not enough room yet. Things are not bad enough yet for a Milei-like character in the United States. Like numbers, are you not going just a bit ANCAP between disobeying ICE, calling basic vetting authoritarian, and abolishing young folks for joining ROTC? No, I'm not. Absolutely not. I've made a clear distinction between ICE and the regular police. I'm not calling for anarchy. I'm not calling for disobeying all government laws. I'm just saying this is particularly evil, just like Jim Crow laws were particularly evil and shouldn't have been obeyed and should have been demonstrated. And I think this is in the same category. I didn't call basic vetting authoritarian. I said there's an argument that vetting isn't, in a completely free society, real vetting is a violation of rights. But I'm happy to move to a system where we vet people, and that's all that we do. That would be a huge improvement over what we have today. I'm not, and vetting, and by the way, open immigration with no vetting is not in an ANCAP position. I mean, Hope believes in immigration restraints. So does Dave Smith. So do many of the ANCAPs. They believe in restricting immigration. I'm not admonishing young folks from joining ROTC. I'm just warning them that they are now joining a military run by irrational people. If politics were rational in a rational world, I would encourage people to go to ROTC. I would encourage people to join the military and to defend a great country. Is it worth defending right now? And is it worth putting your life at risk when the people running it don't care about your life? That would not be the case in an ideal society. Michael, it seems Trump's handlers are trying to keep a dementia patient comfortable with familiar surroundings. Well, I don't know if that's the case, right? He's traveling all over the world. He meets people all the time. He's in social events constantly. He's in front of the press constantly. It doesn't seem like they're trying to shield him from the public or from the press like they did for Obama. So no, I don't. That's not my interpretation of what's going on. Newly Dan, what if Ukraine was as strong as Israel? Well, then the war would have been over a long time ago, and Russia would have been kicked out of Ukraine. Clark, all second-rate objectivist intellectuals leave ARI and end up supporting Trump and getting hired by Craig Biddle. I don't know who got hired by Craig Biddle. I don't know if that's true. Some second-rate objectivists do, but not all of them. Newly Dan, what if the Vatican Pope was more like the Kremlin's Kirill? I don't know. What about that? I don't get that. I don't get the question. The rugged communitarian, the cancellation of ideas is not the competition of ideas, it's the opposite. The way to compete is by making better arguments. Sure, I'm not canceling any ideas. I'm just not platforming those ideas on my platform. Every platform gets to decide what ideas to platform. Some ideas are not worthy of being platforms. That doesn't mean there isn't a platform where those ideas will be presented. Some ideas, by the way, should be ignored. Like I can think of a lot of ideas that it's a waste of your time to counter them because they're so stupid, they're so irrational, they're so immoral, they're so evil that there's no point in even bothering, right? Do you really need to make an argument about that pedophilia is bad? Do we really need to get in that argument? Do we really have to have a debate? No. I mean, pedophiles, I would never have a pedophile on my show. I'm not going to have a racist on my show. I'm not going to have an anti-Semite on my show. Those ideas are not worth debating. But I don't think the government should cancel anybody. The government shouldn't stop people. The pedophiles, the anti-Semites, and the racists can build their own platform and advocate for their own ideas on their platform. It's just, they're not going to be on mine. Liam, is the Trump administration just waiting for an ICE agent to be unalived? Then they'll have an excuse to ban protests. That is interesting. What happens when somebody kills an ICE agent? And somebody tried and failed, but if somebody kills ICE agents, then what happens? Miller goes berserk. It's very possible that they're waiting for something like that. Liam, Trump presents to these losers everything they think they want. He's rich, has a hot wife, does whatever he wants. They think becoming a Tony Soprano character is reaching the top. Yes, and our culture has idealized the Tony Soprano gangster type person. Again, because of altruism, people think that at least those people are not constrained by altruism. So they live the life. They're not moral, they won't go to heaven, but they live the life, God. And a lot of people wish they were like them, and they live vicariously through a Donald Trump or through a Jeffrey Epstein. Michael, being a bad person ages you. Good people have a light about them. I think that's right, although I think there's some bad people who look pretty young. It ages you here, so it destroys your capacity. You're not happy. That's the bottom line. Whether you can always project whether it comes out or not, you're not happy. Whoops. The rugged communitarian, read Ian Fletcher and watch debates. He exposes the flaws of the free trade argument. Bullshit. There are free market economists support all this. Your ignorance is bliss. No, I'm not ignorant. I've read these arguments. They're bullshit. They're anti-economics. They don't make any sense. They're bad economics. They're bad politics. They're bad moral. They're bad in every dimension. They're just not persuasive. And so yes, I've read the arguments, and they suck. That's the reality. Sorry. Matt, I admire Lon for his science and business acumen, not philosophy, but seeing him be friendly with a known monster and lying about it crosses the line. Yeah, doesn't surprise me though. Steve-O, what do you think of 12 Angry Men? Do you know if jury decisions have gotten better since they admitted women and became more diverse? I do not know if jury decisions have gotten better since then. I have no idea. I like 12 Angry Men, particularly the original, the one with Henry Ford, the original version from the 1950s or 60s, I think. That's one of the great movies ever made. I think it's brilliant. I think it's epistemologically interesting. What is truth? How do we know it? It's a really, really, really good movie. I encourage everybody to watch the original. I'm not so sure about the more modern one. I think it's good too, but I think the original is better. Eliminus. Elon asked for wildest party was the best one. I guess. It depends on how you categorize best. Let's see. Ryan, do you think Democrats aren't talking about Trump's business corruption because they want in on this action when in power? How can they ignore this? I think Democrats are just overwhelmed and they don't know what to talk about, and they're just floundering. I have no idea why they don't. I don't think it's that they want in on this later. That's too much forward thinking. I just think that there's so much going on. They don't know what to focus on, and they don't know what will resonate with voters. But it's fascinating that they're not. Now, if they win the House, I think they will use some of these things to try to impeach Trump. SMAZ, is it possible high gold price as a result of the Chinese wealth-seeking stability? Love the show. I doubt it. I think the Chinese central bank is buying more gold, but not at these numbers and not at these valuations. These numbers and these valuations are primarily driven by retail investors and primarily driven by speculation, by speculative investors. That's my view. I think central banks have been steady buyers of gold since COVID. They steadily bought, but I don't think they suddenly flooded the market last year and drove prices way up. Newly Dan, the Kremlin was officially defined Satanism, has officially defined Satanism as Western influence, Ukrainian resistance, and LGBTQ. It seems they have successfully demonized the opposition. Well, yeah, I mean, it's an old USSR trick. They've just learned from the best, which were the communists, and they're implementing it, and yeah, they're demonizing everything. All right, Argentinian. Hi, Mr. Brook. Was Lincoln's 1863 suspension of habeas corpus justified? And if not, does it diminish his status as a historical giant? Thanks for your amazing work and all you do. No, it was not justified. It can never be justified to suspend habeas corpus. And look, Lincoln did a number of things. He established conscription. He established the first income tax that diminish his stature as a history giant. And yet, the fight abolished slavery. Winning the Civil War is one of the greatest acts in history and most important acts in preserving the United States of America. So a lot can be forgiven because of that. But yes, it's all bad, and it certainly is diminishing. All right, the last question. You guys have been amazingly generous today. Thank you, guys. My concern is that if we miss the small movements for governmental involvement, we'll miss the goal of those who want the government to have 100% control. I'm with you. We should support those movements towards more freedom, and we should encourage them and support them and embrace them and push for them. It's just we also have to be very realistic on how efficacious they can be, how much influence we can have, and how efficacious they could be. But yes, I think we need to watch politics. This is why I do the show. Watch politics carefully for both the good and the bad. There's very little good going on in politics, other than, again, the deregulation of things like energy. The bad overwhelms it right now, which is sad. Thank you, guys. I need to run. You guys are incredibly generous. I really, really appreciate that. And I will see you all, not tomorrow. Tomorrow's pretty busy. Tuesday. I'm going to try to do a show Tuesday during the day from Boston. Then again, probably on Thursday. Adam, are popular majorities in some countries, like Israel, US, losing sight of corruption, especially at the top levels of government, as a moral issue, as existential national issue? I think it certainly is the case in the US. It goes together with allowing for authoritarianism. You saw that in Hungary. You saw that with Russia. The more you allow corruption, the more you're authoritarian. I don't know if that's true of Israel. Maybe it is. I'm not engaged enough in Israeli politics to know. I mean, there is a movement against Netanyahu. Netanyahu is not a popular figure, and people do talk a lot about his corruption, and he is in trial now for corruption. I don't know how widespread corruption is in Israeli politics. It's possible, but I don't know. Certainly in the United States, I think as we've moved towards more authoritarianism, people's tolerance of corruption has increased, unfortunately. All right. Thank you, guys. I will see you all on Tuesday. Bye.